Hello, and welcome to what is basically my PowerPoint presentation, right? And it's for the channel as well as IT, right? So IT is the subject here. It is called Technic It Factor. So basically a presentation describing the channel in a way, which is my IT channel on here, but also the meaning behind it, right? Information technology and computers, career development channel, and PowerPoint presentation. Just to give you kind of a, you know, firsthand intro summary of what's going to be in this presentation. Um, First of all, what is some of my background, right? What do I know on tech? What are some of the things I've done? And understand at a technical level in the IT career field. What is some of my background, education, or maybe some of the jobs I've done? Uh, But before that, I want to talk about what do I mean by this, right? Technic it factor. It's something I kind of came up with as well, which is it factor, which I'll get into just before all that. Um, what is the meaning behind that term I came up with? And also at the very end, just a little bit about some of like my future goals, some of what I want to do next, based off all of this other experience I've had and go from there, right? It's mostly going to be my background and some of the story, perhaps, right, so far, what I've done in IT, experience in education, some jobs, and also, like as said at the end, there's going to just be a little bit of things I have in mind to do in the future in the IT and tech career field as well. So we'll get right into that, into the next slide on this PowerPoint presentation. So, first of all, what is Technic it factor or IT factor? But it's mostly what I largely go with is call it it factor, um, but spelled in that way, which is IT. So ultimately, it's a reference to both, but I'm gonna go ahead and read the slides here as well. So it kind of means, it's kind of three things in a way: IT and tech savvy. So the ability to understand computers and technology, particularly at a high level. Or even if not at a high level right away, it basically means the ability to learn over time, have the know-how and the motivation to, learn over time or continue to learn and increase your skills within the IT and tech field. So as I said here as well, and the rest of it, practice and be skilled in tech, software, PC hardware, and creating solutions, all examples of tech savvy. Personality. So it factor, as far as I've looked up and understood, which is kind of a reference to just that, which is an it factor. It kind of means in a way like a successful personality, to have an ability to communicate in a certain way or have a good style, right? Or be like talk or whatever it is, right? Basically, successful personality. As said on here, charisma, customer service, positively, basically something that you can do to where you will find success in some way. So that's combining those two elements is what I came up with, which is IT, information technology, as well as it factor, which is could be a larger than life personality, but perhaps even for some people, it's just that they're also relatable in some way, right? So I'm connecting those two. Um, Customer service, right, and work with people positively in it factor. So that's what that's a reference to. An it factor, successful ability. And then discipline. I also like to add that in there to have some level of discipline within having an it factor and work towards your goals. Grow in the tech field of work and IT, have some IT skills with a growth mindset, which is another one I've already kind of referenced. But it basically means that if you rather than believe that just because you don't have a skill in something, that you can't really achieve something in that field or goal at some point. But the growth mindset is the ability to understand to yourself that if you do keep working on things, whether it's mentally or elsewhere, that you can grow from that and you can either be more skilled or smarter or learn more, and that's the idea of the growth mindset. As it says here, strive to be big or positively successful, which again is all, this is all within the it factor term that I've come up with. Positive, which basically means that you're not hurting people, you're doing it in a kind way, or a way that's good to people, and that's where that relates into there as well. It factor, because an it factor is not negative, obviously, and especially in tech and IT, you'll often work with people and you're helpful to them, like help desk. I've been in help desk, and so you want to treat them well. You want to be personable with people. It's solving problems in a way a lot in help desk and IT in particular. So, next slide. So this one is computer skills in modern day. So part of the reason that I've been furthering and interested in picked IT and information technology, computer related career, right, is the future and the now. So in other words, it kind of means like tech is involved in both the now and the future. I kind of see it as it's not going anywhere, and people can fall behind in certain areas if they don't keep up on that specifically, which is tech. And computers and tech is going to be ever further advancing, right? Just as much as it's going to be important as it is now, as it's going to be important in the future, right? It's one of those things that I prefer to keep up on in some way or understand it, because computer skills and tech skills we're in kind of the digital age, right? That's kind of what I think of it as. And so that's where my idea of the computer skills comes into the future and the now. Understanding tech helps in many situations. Again, it's kind of similar to what I said. It's kind of all over the place, right? You watch TV, or you watch the internet, or whatever it is, right? Or you use the internet, or you use a smartphone even, or a computer. It can help in all those situations, right? It's helpful for me, or it can help for you or whoever looks into tech, right? Because I think of it as almost like ever present, right? Tech is in the modern day almost everywhere. So I consider it in some ways, most people should have like some kind of understanding of computers and tech. But of course, for me, I'm wanting to be even more advanced into the IT professional level, which I already am, and I've already had jobs in IT. And that's the meaning of that slide. It understands in more situations than only work, right? It's very helpful in many situations. IT skills help with many jobs and career trajectories. Again, IT and computers and tech, having an understanding of how to use them, I would imagine it's in other fields as well, right? Maybe even just regular customer service, you're using some kind of tech, or perhaps in trades, right? If you know tech, and maybe it's useful, right? In some way, you can, for example, maybe you can look up something on your phone or use the AI, or some kind of software, right? Or maybe some kind of hardware. It's good to know because it can be useful in various ways, right? It can come up, and as long as you either understand it or you understand how to learn and get better at it, then I would imagine that it's going to help you in various ways outside of only being in the IT field. And from there, I want to get into my own personal journey so far with the IT study and career progress. And this should be an interesting one, and I hope you enjoy this as well. So I'm going to check something here. Okay, so my story. And then there's going to be a lot of learning stuff here that I've learned over the time after this. And that's going to be really cool. It's going to be educational and informative, and I think people will really like some of the next parts here. So first of all, my story. My name is Nicholas, or Nix. A lot of times I say for people that you can call me Nick because it's kind of simpler to say. And so one of the first things that I've done to get into IT or experience in education is a course known as Year Up. It was the Year Up IT program, and basically help desk was the main subject, or IT and help desk became the subject of that program that I've completed. It was a year-long program. It was, long story short, 6 months first of learning, right? All kinds of tech concepts, which I'm going to get a little bit more into later in this presentation. And then 6 months also of basically a job, but it was an internship, which I have completed as well. It's all completed. So that was that. That was a number of years ago by now. But of course, it kind of kickstarted my education within the field, which I from then have grown with more jobs and side jobs I've done and more education I've done from there. Course Careers, um, which is another program. However, this one was kind of self-paced, meaning it was mainly online, although there were quizzes, right? And there was educational videos. And long story short, there's a lot of IT and tech concepts within that program. I would recommend this program as well. Both of them are good, in my opinion, in their own ways and in their own, caveats or strengths in their own regard. So Course Careers I've also completed. Lots of, making sure something here, great tech information in there. And I really do like how it is self-paced, but also has some really good information that you can learn within your own time. But also there was not only quizzes, but a test at the end of that course. Both of these really had tests at the end, but this one was challenging in its own way. And that anybody, me included, whoever has completed that course, I had to study up on the tests, self-paced as well to study, right? Pick some days and do the test. And that test, for example, by the way, was you had to be on camera and you had to do everything on you had to fill everything out. It was, for example, there was how do you say, multiple choice, but there was also like speaking, right? There was also, you had to just say your answers. So long story short, these were both really good courses in my opinion, and in some ways challenging, but also very good, very educational, and they've definitely built up my skill even more so from doing them and strengthened my knowledge and experience in the IT field. So that's good. Cisco, I'll just get into a little bit of that. These were perhaps a little bit shorter, but also very good in their own right. They were the Cisco certs for computer hardware basics and operating system basics. These I had potentially to do into something else for another course. They were kind of prerequisites, which I'm not quite sure if I'm going to do that because I've been very busy with everything I've been handling. But long story short, also good, also self-paced IT educational. If I can give some brief overview of some of it, the computer hardware basics, from what I remember, was kind of explaining like how to disassemble, right, how to take apart certain parts of the computer, um, basically furthering the knowledge of a large amount of which I've already had, which is understanding the parts in particular within a PC. And also building on that is showing how to actually physically take it apart and put it back together. So that's a lot of what was in there as well. Operating system basics. Again, I've already had a lot of pretty good experience using operating systems. So that was another one that just strengthened a little bit as well, furthering it. A lot of it does stick in my head as well. If I remember correctly, this is one of the first times I was also introduced not only to some of the main two, which is Windows and Mac OS operating systems, but I do believe this was also a really good intro and actually kind of far in my opinion on Linux, right? So this is a really good intro to me for Linux, and I will probably look up more on my notes on this as well because I remember I took a lot of great notes on this part in particular, which was the Linux operating system. And then I'll just talk a little bit about some of the things of my own past, and from an early age of youth. one of the things I was always pretty good at, like always good at in general, was being able to learn things, right? So I was sometimes even interested when I was younger, right? A lot of, students, whether it's when I was young or as an adult, um, in comparison, I had no problem being studious or doing my work, in other words, learning, and getting good at things mentally or whatever it may be, right? I have sometimes the curiosity or being okay with an ability to develop my skills, right? Especially in learning something. Something that somebody says in my family has said many times is the story of like when I was very young, um, reading, right? So I was extremely young, but I just was looking at words on the screen from the subtitles, right? For example, and I said at some point, well, I kind of want to know what this is. I want to learn to read. And then literally, I became one of the first people to learn to read, right? Within that time, which was very young, obviously. It was probably like 6 years old or something. But it just shows that's something that I could be extremely good at, which is learning something and being okay with doing the work to advance that learning. And that relates into getting into IT and tech in regards to that. And as well, the other part, which was growing up in a time which I consider the tech boom, the internet digital boom. This was around the 2000s, right, or so, to the tens as well. But in my opinion, and from my age group, it gives me, in somewhat, I don't know if you would call it an advantage, but an understanding of tech all the way from an early age, because this is, and I would imagine people who are younger than me also have an advantage in some way in that regard. But it's just making the point. Oh, by the way, I want to switch this over here. My bad, I was blocking the rest of it. So just making that point that the technology was available even then. Smartphones were coming out already, and you had these social media booms, right? The ones that are so popular as they are now, they were out by then. They came up, and I've seen them rise, or the tech rise, right? The internet rise, um, during my lifetime. A lot of people, I'm sure, have as well, but I'm just making that point as well. IT jobs and computer-related roles include JLL. So this JLL is an analyst. This is one of my very first roles, as I have mentioned previously, within year up. So that was a good role as well. And I used in particular, Excel is one of the main things I used, but I was also working with phones as well. So I was switching up the iPhones and I was resetting the iPhones. And I was, for example, using a lot of, yeah, Excel, but a couple of other things such as ServiceNow. But it also got I don't know if you would say my feet wet, but it developed my skill further in Excel and how to use certain functions and how to, operate that system within Microsoft Office. And then when I'm around computers and tech, I have an interest to keep learning and practice on my own. Which again, this is also true and shown on this channel. A laptop project that I've done, nobody really suggested for me to do that project. It's just another example of my own self-interest and self-learning and self-developing my skills, um, just with the motivation to do well at my jobs or in my work, and that's been shown on here as well. I have other ideas to do as well, but we're gonna just keep going with this PowerPoint for now. Okay. Software and related skills. We're gonna get into some of the meat of some of these experience and things I know. So, Microsoft Word, or really Microsoft Office Suite, which has been renamed a few times as far as I understand. Microsoft 365 is also a common naming for it, which is largely known as the larger whole. You can also get subscriptions based on this software. Very useful software in my opinion. I've seen it in my jobs and I've seen it in the courses, and I think it's a very good thing to either learn or use in some way at certain companies. So Word can create and edit documents, right? So Microsoft Word, in my opinion, it's probably not the highest level as far as skill level in its usefulness as well, and compared to some of these other softwares. However, it is very good and useful in its own way. I've learned how to use it in the past, and I know how to use it very well. So, for example, you have the ribbons. It's basically a document, right? Software within MS Office. You can create a document. You could write something up, text something up, and you could edit it as well. It could have number of different uses, right? Mainly, I would consider it text-based, right? You can just write up an essay, or you can write up something within a company, or you can create an ad, for example, right? Which I've done as a kind of like homework project within Europe. For example, I created an example of what could be used as an ad. So it's a good one, and I definitely do have experience in it. There's a number of things I've done or understand how to do it. You can switch the text styles, you can make bolds, right? You can make headers, footers. It's useful in its own way, and it's just a showing of my understanding of that part of the software of Microsoft Office 365. PowerPoint. PowerPoint is what I'm using here, right? This is PowerPoint. It is mainly used for presentations. And by the way, I'm not even looking at any notes right now. I'm just basically going off my own understanding and experience using these texts. These are softwares, but there's going to be more I'm going to get into as well. So PowerPoint, I'm using a PowerPoint. I created this entire presentation with a PowerPoint, right? Creating the slides, put in pictures, you can put in text. And as far as I remember and understanding from the project I've done within Europe, for example, sometimes there's also ways of presenting your PowerPoint. You're doing public speaking. You can be short on the words if you like. And for example, sometimes it's better to make it understandable, right, within PowerPoint. So as an example of me doing that here, these words, or basically each bullet point within this slide for PowerPoint. They're not extremely long, right? So this one is a great example because it just basically gives you a very short, simple understanding, right? It's not like 20 sentences or so. It's not a run-on, but it's just there and it's all you need from there. And anything else that is to be explained, I can basically explain on my own from saying the rest of it. So, yep, that is PowerPoint. It can be used in companies, it can be used in IT, and it can especially be used within presentations, educational presentations, or somebody can use and do PowerPoint to not only teach something, but I would imagine also to do something within a company or business, such as we're doing a meeting and we're using a PowerPoint to present and discuss what we're doing next, right? What is the next goal? What is the financial thing? Or what are we doing based off of the next financial or IT-based goal, using PowerPoint as a basis to teach and discuss that presentation. And teachers as well, I'm sure, use it too, especially within colleges, I would imagine. So Excel, I'm going into a lot of detail here, but I honestly am not, there's nothing, I don't see a reason not to, right? Because it's just going to further my personal brand even more, explain even more than I even would need to. Excel, which I've talked about previously, I consider this, of the ones within Office, one of the better ones, or for example, one of the higher skill-based of them, and potentially one of the most useful. It is basically a spreadsheet software. You have cells and you have numbers, and you can with it input all kinds of information, particularly based off of numbers, based off of data. Could be sales numbers, could be budgeting numbers. There's a lot of uses for it, but it also uses functions, for example, which means you can not only organize the data of the numbers, but you use the functions and within the cells and a lot of the features within there to make your data, you basically, you can be doing math, you can be doing all kinds of things that are going to make it extremely easy, right, for you to organize and format data, and then number data especially. But not only that, you can put words in there too. There's just a lot of, I would say it takes a bit of a learning curve, right? But I think that learning and using Excel is extremely good. I have a lot of experience using Excel, and I've been using it a little bit on my own recently, to basically put in some of my own numbers and own budget idea data, that type of thing, right? So I have plenty of experience with it. And just like with a lot of things here, I am certainly not against, and probably will, in fact, use these more and use this more and further my experience even more. For example, like as I've said, Europe is one of the first times throughout that entire year, though, using the Excel software, learning it even more, doing more functions, and remembering off the top of my head, one of them, it wasn't sum, which is a very simple one. There was, I'll have to look into it again, but long story short, there was an advanced, or at least in my opinion, more advanced function I was using, like basically daily, and became very good at it. And off of that, analyzing data, number data, or whatever the data may be, Excel is extremely useful, and I have plenty of experience in it, and would definitely recommend it, but also show to and say to you that I have plenty of experience. Outlook, which again is part of Office. Um, you can manage emails, you have calendar and contacts integration. So Outlook is basically within the Microsoft Office program, or all of them together, right? Because these are all available within there. But Outlook is the email service within there. So you can go into Outlook and read emails or send emails, and it's especially good in IT work and corporate work in general. It's a very common thing. I've seen it used even outside of IT only, but it's basically the email system. And so from there, you can not only can you send your emails and also send them in the way that is the business or etiquette format of emails, but then you can integrate it within the other apps, right, within MS Office. And so when you're using Outlook, you can also use, like, for example, calendars, which is in Outlook, um, which can help you schedule things, right? Or you can connect certain things within Outlook and then go into the other apps within Office, and it's all kind of connected, right? It's almost like a cloud software in that regard, because within the MS Office, software, you have multiple apps which all can be working in coherence with each other, and that's what's really great about it. Just as well as people who are working, within that company can work with each other, and they can work with each other using these apps. So it's almost like a networking and collaborative thing as well. So we're gonna go to the next slide. And so Windows and Mac OS are basically operating systems. So I'm gonna look at this. So on the bullet, I have Windows 10 and 11. I've used Microsoft PCs. I will say these are one of the very early laptops and PCs I've used personally, but now I've also used Mac as well. And they have a variety of prices, customization, and ways of usage. So something I want to add as my experience or understanding, I would say, honestly, in my opinion, the Windows and the Windows-based computers are sometimes, I would say, either more common or possibly maybe a little bit more easy to understand, right, within companies and IT-based work. At least from my understanding, because of the jobs I've worked and of the people I've talked to, right, it seems to be a consensus that Windows is more common or maybe more user-friendly. For example, I've talked with someone about a potential job, and for basically talking about and explaining Mac versus Windows, because it's almost as if the Mac OS is maybe not as common or a little bit more complicated, at least in regards to some people who are working within tech business or company. And then Mac OS, which is used with Apple computers and has a strong connection as well to other Apple devices such as AirPlay. And they're also often known for having a stronger or strong security from cyber attacks. So as well as AirPlay, the point I'm making there is that, for example, I have the experience and understanding that if you use other Apple devices, like if you use not only an iPhone, any kind of the modern iPhones, or any devices such as the tablets, right, the iPads, you can basically use a very simple feature, which is something I like, that you can transfer something um, using AirPlay. You can transfer notes, or you can transfer whatever it is, pictures, documents, um, whether it's tech related or otherwise. And so that's just me showing that understanding of that feature within the Apple devices, within connection to Mac OS, as well as iOS, which is basically the phone version of that operating system. Troubleshoot. So as troubleshooting, you can use command line interfaces and system monitoring tools for ways to troubleshoot issues. Troubleshooting is often explained through the CompTIA's 8 steps of troubleshooting methodology. Right, so in other words, from the understanding and studies, or from me seeing that, which is called the CompTIA, which is basically a computer-based company, an educational company, the steps of troubleshooting. So I have experience seeing and using these steps of troubleshooting. For example, one of the first ones is often identify the problem, or thinking. So in other words, like trying to figure out if I'm troubleshooting something that is tech related, such as in help desk, try to figure out what is wrong and then move on to the steps and then test out different things, right? Test out theories. But often, as taught, as I've learned, and then also put into practice, when using these steps, is to, for example, go step by step. So if it's something simple, then you want to try the simple things first. And you can cross off or check off based off of how many simple solutions have been tried, or how many things I've done to figure something out, right? And then if that's not the issue, then move on to the next one and escalate until I can figure something out, and then solve it from there, basically within order, right? It's basically the fundamentals going up, the next leveling understanding of when troubleshooting and solving a tech related issue. Just as well, add one last thing there, which is, and then once you solve something, or once I solve something tech related, is also often suggested to record it, right, in some way, which is called document findings. That's one of the other last steps within the 8 steps of troubleshooting. So once it's solved, it's often really good for me or anybody else within the tech field to write something down or keep track of something, so you understand like how to solve it just as well next time. So Active Directory, this is another really good one. Uh, it is a Microsoft directory service used for managing users, accounts, computers, and resources. It is basically, I would think of it as a very big hub, right? It's something I have experienced, and that says here is in this slide as well. I've installed Active Directory. This was mostly through learning and then actually performing the learning steps through course careers. Is one of the first times I've come into understanding of Active Directory. So I've installed it, which I also have a GitHub showing part of this process I've done as well. This is a very good project I've done at the end of completing course careers. So edited user accounts through password management through a project, and using top to bottom organizations such as forest, trees, OUs, which is organizational units, Active Directory can be used in Windows for user account management and password organization by admin. So in other words, it is right, basically a software, although often paid as far as I understand, but it's a hub, which I have, for now I have experience in doing it in a project, but I think very likely and potentially I will have experience using it on the job. But the point is that I have experience in understanding of it from that you can basically hub up accounts, right, within a company, people's accounts, passwords, and it also has the ability, especially as an admin within Active Directory, to have like some, how do you say, basically being trustworthy and then working within those accounts, such as switching up the password or putting certain permissions or so, right? And it's within a person of a role such as myself who is trustworthy and understands the technology. So can basically viewing the accounts, right? And then it also is very organized, right? So for example, um, accounts for someone and their passwords can be within a folder for a specific like role within that company, and then within another role there's a folder of people's accounts within there. And so as an IT technician professional and potentially as an admin at some point, right, it is my understanding to take care of those accounts and then basically use Active Directory to view the hub, view the accounts, view the passwords, and make changes based off of the needs of the people in the company using the IT experience. So, for example, if someone loses their password or something, or if they have an issue with the password or have an issue with logging into an account, um, for myself or for an IT professional, we can edit, right? We can switch out the password again and make sure that the other user receives the password, or it's basically kind of an advanced level of help desk using Active Directory, and specifically with user account information and organization. So very common as well as far as I understand, very common software and very useful, right? It's an important and large hub regarding accounts, passwords, and all of that type of information. Help desk and ticketing systems. If anything, I could have started with this one, but that's all good. As in, that could have came before Active Directory. So just talking about some of help desk and ticketing, which I also have not only now like basically work or no educational experience in, but also at a few jobs in the past now as well. I've created this entire PowerPoint presentation some time ago, but I am now completing the entire presentation. So ticketing systems are software used by technicians to solve issues and customer support tickets. And basically, the ticketing systems are within IT, particularly in for help desk, in which, as an IT technician, I can see people's issues, right, as far as tech issues to solve. Um, the information can be within there, and now I have experience also doing that at previous jobs, which is interacting with the customers within a good way, within a kind but a calm, understanding way, and then either knowing what to do or researching it. And all that data can be tracked within the ticketing system, which is again is a hub, but particularly for IT help desk technicians to solve tickets and help customers solve their tech issues, or not even customers, but basically people within a company. And some of the examples of ticketing systems and help desk are OS Ticket and ServiceNow. So I have now used not only ServiceNow previously or understanding of OS, but I've now used it, have some experience using it on a temp job. And I'm not too familiar as to like what are the other more common popular ticketing systems, but I certainly know that ServiceNow is a really popular and commonly used one, and I have experience using it as well. And so again, I've tracked data in there prior to basically like coming to some understanding of how to use it and then actually putting it into practice. I put a lot of, for example, I would say a good amount of detail, right? Like for example, when I was doing a temp job, I would solve something related to Microsoft Office or work on it, and I would put updates like I looked this up or I talked to this person on the phone in a kind manner, right? While asking a number of follow-up questions and to come to an understanding to help me solve the problem, to help me go off of something so I could research anything else that I hadn't yet found or hadn't yet figured out. But that is what ServiceNow and ticketing systems are. I'll get a little bit more on here. SLAs, which are basically service level agreements. There are rules and requirements for technicians to meet. So they're basically rules for as a help desk technician, which I've also seen it at work now, not only in course careers. Um, but they're basically requirements for a technician to meet. So for example, it could be time-based or it could be do this number of tickets at this time. Um, and that's what those are. That's basically part of help desk as well, right? There's sometimes rules and requirements that a technician should meet, right? And I understand that, right? To basically do something in a certain amount of time or do it at a certain quality and get things done based off of SLAs within IT and help desk workspace. And then IT help desk teams help ensure customer tech issues are solved, which helps ensure money making and other teams in business to work without dealing with the tech related issues. So this is again something I've heard within course careers and have an understanding of. And that the help desk technicians, for example, I've done help desk work as well. I'm basically helping tech issues be solved, and then sometimes the help desk IT technicians are not necessarily generating a huge amount of income, but the point is they are solving the issues, which speed things up, and it basically solves problems, right? So anybody who's coming up with problems in tech in a company or corporate company office, I would say it's probably always going to happen. Somebody's going to have tech issues. So if you have an IT help desk person or IT professional technician, that's for me or whoever else to solve those problems, and that's going to create more openings, right, for anybody else within the company to work on what they are working on, right? Because within a company or within whatever it is, we all have our own roles, right? And so they will not be able to do their roles as well because they're going to be either held back by a tech issue, which either like won't get solved, and that's going to be a problem, which is going to cost more for somebody to pay for something, or if it does get solved, it's going to take even more time without IT and tech-oriented savvy technicians, IT professionals to solve them, which I can do much quicker, right? With that understanding of myself, that I have the experience and know how to solve problems in tech, and that's what makes it useful as far as technicians, but especially for help desk technicians. Cybersecurity. It's going extremely long, but I don't really have a problem with it so far. So use password and safety by making different passwords or using a password manager. This is just some examples of like cybersecurity that I would recommend as some basic cybersecurity that I understand and I would recommend. Um, Basically, the idea to use different passwords and to mix them up and have them to yourself, to not share them with anyone, and make sure that you know them and you know them alone, but that you do not lose them. So basically a cybersecurity tip for that. Use caution with certain sites and do not click on suspicious links. Again, another good tip in cybersecurity understanding, which is basically the security of your data and information around the tech to make sure that no one gets into that and that the data is safe. Different security measures such as VPNs are updating device software to ensure better safety of online data. Which again, more examples of that you can do to secure your information within the field of understanding of cybersecurity. Which again, as far as I understand, cybersecurity is of course a further role, but at the same time, having understanding of it and then putting it into practice is going to help in anything within tech in general. Right? It's always, in my opinion, good to practice some form of cybersecurity for anyone who's using things online within the company or really with otherwise, especially if some of your data is important in some way, right? You want to keep it secure. And so that's tips and some of my understandings of cybersecurity. Soft skills and customer service. I'm probably going to end off soon and I'm going to just finish the rest of this off in a part 2. But I do think this is an important one as well. This is customer service is one of the things that I've actually done within the project at Euro. So customer service experience. To be in customer service, you want to work well with people and patience and understanding, especially within IT. Because I consider it as though everyone has their own specialties. And so if I'm in the field of IT and tech help desk, right, or solving tech issues, um, you know, one of my goals is to talk to people in ways that are calm or understanding and using patience, right? That has been taught to me um, within Europe and put into practice as well, right? Talk to people in ways that are good and basically not seeming as though that it's going to make them think that they don't have an understanding that I do, right? I want to be understanding and if I can use very simple language or a very good tone when helping people talk or for me to solve tech issues. Honest and reliability, again, very good in IT and as well for the customer service because to be in IT can have certain information for certain tech. And so I know that I always put this into practice as well, which is having some sort of honesty and reliability and that I am trustworthy. And so that I put that into practice. Having the ability to learn, but also the ability to be, maybe I could say introverted, but also reliable and honest, makes me a very good candidate for more of those jobs in that field because I can understand information, but then I could also have it, only to within the company or it's going to be entrusted within me and that's a very good trait that for me to have or anybody within the IT field. And then it also says based on great results, be on time and respectful at work. Again, very similar. It should be kind of what's the word without having to be said, right? But that's what I always try to do is be professional and respectful at work, right? There are certain times for certain things, but within the IT field or maybe within work and jobs or going to some kind of work in general, that you want to have some kind of good etiquette, right? You want to put on some of your best face at certain jobs, meaning, do not have some kind of overly bad language all the time and be respectful of people, right? It's extremely useful as well and related to customer service within the tech companies and IT for solving problems. Demonstration. I've shown these skills by working well with customers, being entrusted with money involved tasks, and working to get along with both co-workers and customers. Now, again, this is that reference to handling money, which is also true as well. I'm a very honest type of man, but oh man, that was from a long, long time ago. But again, it was just making the point that the boss in one of my previous where I worked in a company that entrusted me to handle the money, and then go make deposits. So in other words, just showing my trustworthiness, right? That if I'm working somewhere and I'm always going to be respectful, or I'm always going to be able to be relied upon to do the task and do it correctly, meaning like there's not going to be any cheat or stealing, because I always ensure some sort of honesty and reliability and respect, and trust, especially within the IT field. So it all kind of connects into that, and I'm actually kind of proud just to be able to do that as well. And so I'm probably going to end it off for now, simply because this is getting extremely long. Although I do think that so far I'm very happy with how this is turning out. This is going to be part one, and I really hope you enjoy, right? This is Tech Nick It Factor, based off of It Factor, which is the idea of an information technology professional and career, but also combined with It Factor, which is a successful type of personality. I really hope that you enjoyed this so far on this channel and on this presentation of IT, but also of my tech career development. Thank you so far, and this is going to go up, and I'm going to leave it out with this, which has become one of my sayings on here. Um, you know, a few different sayings I come up with in regards to work and whatever else I do, especially within the IT field, which is, of course, have an it factor. And not only that, not only the in factor, which is a successful or personable, you know, unique personality to reach either charisma or success, but also reference to information technology and tech-based careers. So have an it factor and be built to do IT right. And I'll see you in the next one. I'll see you in the next level. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.